And by the way, Mila, you are
Oh,
you're
yeah.
muted. Okay.
Okay,
All
great.
right.
The recording started, and welcome everybody.
Okay. So, up until last week, we were looking at in detail Mimale Kol Al Mim, and we were looking at the Mashalim, the four Mashalim that we were given for Mimale, how Hashem's light functions in this world. So what are those four Mashalim? Anybody? Somebody. Okay, we've been talking about the four Mashalim for Mimale Kol Al Mim. Okay, then I'm going to call on somebody.
Light of the candle, Neshama. Light of the sun, light of the candle, highest. Is that what you mean? In the body?
Why are you asking me if that's what I mean? It's a straight question.
That's right. Did I get it right? Is that it?
Yeah. There's the light of the sun. There's the light of the candle. There's the neshama, the way that it enlivens the body. And then there's the koach hapol b'nifal, the more detailed power of the details of the koach going into the details of the body. So those are the four mashalim that we have. And now last week we started to look at the nimshal, to look at Hashem's light, because those are just mashalim that we can understand and get an idea of how that could work. But now he wants to go back into the nimshal, which is the light of Hashem, and explain to us how that works literally in the light of Hashem. And so, what we thought we would do, Mila, do you think we should do this? Are there enough people to do this, to go into breakout rooms? What we've been doing up until recently is so that the learning is a little bit more active, is that we get you to go into breakout rooms and we let you do some, chazara, some repetition of what it is that we've done up until now, so that you're not just coming without the preparation. So what we'd like to do is we'll put you into small groups, and this is what we would like you to do. To look at paragraph 1 and paragraph 12. Paragraph 12 is what we learned last week. And I want you to go back and read paragraph 1 quite quickly. It really gives you the basis of what is Yichud Elah, what is Yichud Tata. And what you'll notice there is that he quotes certain verses that then he repeats in paragraph 12, which we did last week. So I want you to just get this feeling, this understanding of what it was that we started to learn and where it is, where we are now in the expansion of that. So is that clear? Basically, you should designate somebody, to read it. Don't spend too much time on paragraph 1. It's something that you should be familiar with. And, spend like 10 minutes on paragraph 1 and 10 minutes on paragraph 2. And those who feel that, they can't speak, so somebody else in the group should read and other people listen. And that, it's just really about making sure that we're a vessel for what we're going forward into, that we know the basics. Okay, so everybody please participate, even if you're speaking, and figure it out in the group who's reading, who's discussing, but don't get caught up. What the idea is to finish both paragraph 1 and paragraph 12 in the designated time, which will be like about 20 minutes, 25 minutes max. Okay. So,
Nelia, I can't. I'm just coughing and sneezing and with fever, and so I can just listen. But
so you can be in a group, you'll listen. You won't be the one who speaks. At least you'll be listening. Okay. So Mila, do you want to put people into groups? Okay, so let's get just a short feedback. What did you learn? What did you notice? Was it useful to go back to paragraph 1 and just see what it is we're talking about here? Anybody, something?
I'll start.
Okay.
I think what we noticed was that paragraph 1, and maybe I shouldn't speak for the group, but as we were going over it, here's what I was thinking, and I can't say for sure what they were thinking, was that there's in paragraph 1, it seems to be like a more general, specific concept of like there's a greater unity above and a more specific unity below, and that you have to be able to get to the higher unity, but you can only do that through the lower unity. Somehow it's connected to mitzvahs, which I'm curious. I'd love to ask you guys, like, how is that connected to mitzvahs? And then in paragraph 12, it was kind of going more into the specifics. So how does that light actually work? And there were some beautiful like insights that Miriam was kind of bringing to us of like the crown is kind of like a funnel to bring that light from the upper down and into the specifics as it goes into the lower unity. And that light is what, instead of being like just a physical light, it could also be like a spiritual light through which we could like see this I guess divine presence as Hashem is like speaking it into reality with some sort of like, I guess maybe like, inner sense of connection to Hashem through what we experience, but not with our physical eyes, but with a spiritual eye, so to speak.
Okay, beautiful. Anybody? Thank you, Sarah. Anybody in that group want to add anything? Miriam, seems like you were in the group with Sarah.
And for me, it was wonderful just reviewing without having my notes in front of me, which was like my my security blanket. So it was quite nice not having them and just referring back to what I remembered, sort of. And it was wonderful having the insights of Sarah and my other partner, who I didn't quite get her name. But yeah, we philosophized a bit.
Okay, good. I'm also glad to see that, Sarah, what you saw was that in the first paragraph, he's talking b'derech klal. So really, if you studied the first paragraph as we did, way before the 12th paragraph, there were parts that you just wouldn't understand really. Like the whole thing of atah, that Malchus is atah. He just says it, but he doesn't explain it. And then you come to paragraph 12 and he begins to unpack it in some detail. So then he explains, what that means, that what atah is. It's the 22 letters and the 5 ways in which those are, the 5 gvorot, the way that the words are formed. But, I'm just talking here on a technical note that's very often what will happen in this text, is that there will be some things that we won't really understand until much later. But if we don't remember what we've learned from before, then we don't make those connections. So that was also part of this exercise, was just to help you to see those connections as well, of when he's speaking b'derech klal. To us, it seems like a prat, but he'll say something in a general way. and then later he'll come and show it to us in more detail. So, yeah,
We had another question though.
okay.
It sounds like in the first paragraph you're saying that like Hashem is speaking everything into existence. There's the upper kingship and the lower kingship. And it seems to me that like he's speaking in the upper kingship, but it's before it comes into like a revealed reality. So how can you conceptualize Hashem speaking and it not creating something? I need help with a question even, but do you see where I'm going?
Not really. I mean, the way that I understand it is that he says there that Yehuda Tata, which is the three worlds of Bia, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, they receive their flow, their life force from Malchus of Atzilus. And Malchus of Atzilus is that place from which the Dvar Hashem manifests. So those are the words that Hashem speaks the world, as it were, into being. So those of us who are familiar with chapter 1, and also in chapter 3, he speaks about it, that it's kind of like, the three worlds of Bia are like Bina, where you receive the teachings, the words of the teacher, and then you do hisbonenus on the words. So it's a similar kind of thing. The words are coming from Chochmah, from Atzilus, and they're coming into Bina. And so that's where it takes on different keilim, which is the keilim of words. So obviously Malchus of Atzilus is then connected higher to the source of Chochmah, which is, Yehuda Ilah. But the words are being spoken, as it were, from Malchus of Atzilus into Bia. So I don't know if that answers your question. Miriam, you want to say something about that?
No, not at the moment. Thank you.
Sarah, does that make sense, or it's not quite?
Well, I'm curious. It sounds like you're saying from the Malchus of Atzilus that is the source from where the words come out, right?
Yes.
So what are they? How can I conceptualize them before they're words that come out? Like, what is that?
So that's what he really explained in chapter 1. What we discover in chapter 3 is that the whole of chapter 1 was a mashal, as it were, where he talks about Chochmah and Bina. And here we understand that Chochmah is equivalent to Atzilus, and Bina and the other processes that follow it are similar to Bia, Beria, Yetzira, and Asiya. And so what he does in chapter 1 is he explains this whole process to us with the mashal of a teacher giving over teaching to a student, and the way that it manifests coming from above Chochmah all the way down to the lowest part of Bina. So now when we come to chapter 3, we have that as a mashal, partly as a way to understand it, but now he also goes on and he explains in detail. We haven't learned yet in chapter 3 about Yehuda Ilah, which you could say is what you're asking. What does Yehuda Ilah look like? Like, what does it look like before Malchus of Atzilus? And in this chapter, he hasn't spoken about it yet, because he wants us first to understand the three worlds of Bia. And that's what we're going to start to look at in this week's paragraph. We started last week, and now we're going to start to go into a lot more detail. We already know that whatever it was we're going to understand in the Nimshal, which is the way that Hashem's light works in Memale, we have those mashalim. We have things that we can hold on to and understand. But now he's going to explain it to us in the world of Elokus. So, Sarah, yeah, I think that your question will be answered, But for those of us who studied chapter 1, you should be able to make the connection between what we're learning in chapter 3 and what we learned in chapter 1.
Nuria,
Because
would that be equivalent to the light of the sun and the rays of the sun, like kind of like a differentiation when it comes down?
I'm not sure that I understand your question.
So Sarah's question was about Malchus of Atzilus, and how can you conceptualize where it came from if if it's not specific yet, if it didn't come down. So I was thinking about the mashal of the sun and the rays of the sun as we experience them when they come to I think it's called differentiation.
Right. So yeah, in a sense, you're correct, because what we discussed, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, is that the light of the sun kind of is also a mashal that's kind of a mamutza. It tells you a little bit about how how it would come out of it's memale, and it's also a little bit of sovev. So it's a bit of both. But then when you get to the candle, it's for sure mimale.
So that happens a lot? Then there's something that it travels from sovev and becomes mimale?
Yeah, of course. There's always going to be like
Back and forth.
The whole lot of last week's paragraph was showing us how Malchus has this quality of being part of Yehudela and part of Yehuda Tata.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I missed last week. So
okay, at the place where we have this transition from, one world to another, there's going to be kind of something happening that's connected to both. And that's really Malchus of Atzilus. And that's what we saw in last week's paragraph, and we're going to see more of that in this week's paragraph.
okay. So then the question was asked, Sarah also asked how it's related to mitzvah. So I imagine that it's through the mitzvahs that enables us to draw down from Soviv to Mimali in this world. Is that too simplistic?
No, what? I don't want to comment on anything that he hasn't said.
Okay. All right.
So it's like trying to draw a conclusion based on information we haven't been given.
Okay.
I don't like to do that. So maybe
I like to guess about what's coming. So
it's
you
hard
can
to
stick to the text. Yeah.
what is. Never mind what's coming. Okay. All right, Mila, do you want to take it from here, and we'll go on to paragraph 13? You muted.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm heavily involved in in creating a diagram, so people are not going to pass out. But okay, so again, what we're going to do now is we're going to dive a little bit deeper. And usually when you dive deeper, there isn't much oxygen there. So we need to, stay like a little bit, hydrated. And also refrain from, that's like my coping tools, is like refrain from jumping into a conclusion, right? Because that's what our brain is used to do. Okay, moach de katnos. It's called moach de katnos. Those of us who actually, following our Kuntrasei Spiros class, we'll learn about this. Moach de katnos is that when, I don't want to go into details. I just want to force the conclusion right away because I need something tangible. I'm so desperate. Okay, so it happens to be that in Olam Hazeh, in the world of Atzilus, in the world of Asiya, we mainly operate on that. Okay, we right away want to draw a conclusion. What this has to do with me? What this has to do with my avodah? How am I supposed to cook my supper tomorrow? Right, we right away want to have this fast food. Okay, so it will help us. So it will help us to kind of I don't know, survive. Okay, but again, let's take a step back. It is a survival mode. There's absolutely nothing happens in this mode. Nothing good happens in this mode. And since the whole idea of avodah samoichin, right, is to really step back and to observe something without trying to force a bechein. Because bechein is midas. Remember? Chapter 2. We're doing it, we're not doing it. Okay? Are we moving on with this project or we're not moving on with this project? I have to decide, okay, on the spot. Now, we don't have to go there. Not yet. And we're like, okay, we're taking a deep dive. We are learning about Hashem and how Hashem creates the world. Why are we doing it? Simply because the Rebbe wants us to, period. That's it. Not because it's going to give us a high, it's also going to give us all the energies, but that's not why we're going there. We want Eretz Israel to be completely expanded. And this is why we're doing it. That's it. Mesiras Nefesh, our Mesiras Nefesh. We don't have to understand everything. And when we step into reality through this, all of a sudden something bigger opens up. Okay, so this is what tools I want you to acquire when we're going to be jumping into this chapter. But he's going to take us into this whole journey of Malchus. Now, the beauty of it is that when you study this very, very well, what will happen to you is that you will become a better Malchus yourself. Because Malchus, good news, it's a very feminine energy. Okay? It's part of every detail of the house, and yet she has the power to remain above it all. Okay, that's what we learned in paragraph 12, remember? And so you'll see how Malchus works and you'll recognize yourself in it. Okay, and that's the bechein as far as we will allow to go. Other than that, forget it, okay? So don't try to really, force the outcome. Outcome will come as a beautiful package, as an aha moment, but not when you forcing it, because forcing anything, it's moach de katnut. Moach de gadlut is that when you study, you prime your brain, and then you go cook your cholent, and as you're cooking your cholent, you'll be like, oh, that's what it meant, okay? So that's moach de gadlut. It's kind of like, or you'll observe something, a certain reaction from somebody else, or you'll see something, or you'll hear another class, and all of a sudden it will click. It happens on its own, because remember the Rebbe promised us that whenever we do avodah samoichin, the midas are going to be automatically corrected. Midas, we don't mean that only anger, frustration, resentment, and all that stuff. Midas are also decisions. Midas, remember chapter 2. We don't have to force everything. Let things cook on a low fire, and that's you get delicious, meal coming up. Okay, enough. We're going to go into text. Okay, we are paragraph 13, and it should represent me the sarachamim. So let's go. I'm just gonna do my annotate thing. My red ball. I wonder if you have control over those colors. Red, good. I guess keeps your attention. Paragraph 13. V'hine chilas hispashtus ha'or the malchus the Atzilus. Okay, now the first expansion, the manifestation of the radiance of Malchus of Atzilus, okay, who bechinas keser de bria, right? It begins with the keser of bria, right? So just imagine like this Atzilus, the Malchus of Atzilus as the last stop of Atzilus, and then what begins right after? The keser of bria. That's obvious, right? the Keser, then Chachma, Bina, Das, tararara. We're thinking in a very linear way. Now, soon we will see that we can't really think that way, but we have to think in some way. So this is what we see. Right after Malchus of Atzilus comes Keser of Bria. So at that beginning of her, Malchus of Atzilus, beginning the work that she is destined to do, is to create Yesh Mi'ayin. Something happens. What happens? Now, at that beginning, when she goes into the Keser of Bria, she divides into 30 keilim. Whoa. Yeah. So, because remember, Malchus of Atzilus is Shem Elokim. Elokim means plural. Okay, it doesn't mean that there's two gods. It means that there are many elements. Okay, so many elements. So this element now was only Malchus of Atzilus. But then she's like, you know what? I'm going to express myself through 30 keilim. Now, why 30? It's not random. It's not 35. It's not 40. Very organized. Okay, remember, Malchus of Atzilus is exceptionally organized. She's like, Hashem chose 10 spheres, right? System. Well, I'm supposed to create 3 worlds, right? Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 30 keilim, 10 for each world. Makes sense, right? That's her plan. That's her business plan. How she's going to execute what Hashem has for her. Okay, so she's like, okay, I'm doing Lamed keilim. Now, Yud keilim pnimim na'asim neshama la'olam abriya. The 10 keilim, the inner keilim, they become the neshama for the world of Bria. Okay, makes sense. Yud keilim ha'emtzoyim na'asim neshama la'olam yitzira. The 10 intermediary keilim, okay, they're going to become the neshama for the world of Yetzirah. But Yud keilim chitzanim na'asim neshama la'olam asiyah. And the 10 external keilim become la'olam asiyah. Okay, so let's go now to the diagram on my other page, right here. Okay, that's it. So envision Malchus of Atzilus as a circle, okay, with 3 layers. It's like you're peeling an onion, okay, literally. Onion of 3 layers. The inner layer of the Malchus of Atzilus, right, are going to be the 10 inner keilim. The emtzayim, intermediary, also have 10 keilim, and 10 keilim chitzayim. Okay, good, we got it. It's not hard. Okay, so she's like this Russian doll, Malchus of Atzilus. Okay, so she has 3 dolls inside of her. Okay, one is the inner, the intermediary, and external. So in order for her to do the work according to Hashem's plan, she needs to break up into 30. Okay, so what happens? As we said, now this diagram, okay? Looking
Can I
here.
ask a quick question?
No questions yet, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, let's just do this. After this, we'll take questions, okay? Because this is the concept, very, very essential. Now, look at the color coding, right? The keilim pnimim are yellow, right? Then we have this, pink, and then we have purple. Okay, so now, the keilim pnimim became, the keilim pnimim of Malchus of Atzilus became keilim pnimim of Neshama of Bria, right? You get it? Now, keilim emtzayim, the intermediary keilim, became keilim pnimim of Neshama of Yetzirah. Now, keilim chitzayim of her became the keilim pnimim of Asiya. So you see what happens? She has 3 layers from inner to outer. And now within the world, each layer of her keilim became the inner of the world. You see what happens? So And this is very important to remember because it will answer to so many questions we have, the philosopher's questions and something like that. That's what he's giving us right now. Okay. The inner dimension of every single world is the keilim of Atzilus. Again, keilim pnimim of Atzilus become the keilim pnimim of Neshama of Bria. Now, one of you, if you remember our previous diagram, will ask the questions like, wait a second, isn't that the term Neshama corresponds to the world of Bria? But derech klal, yes. But each one of the worlds have all three levels in it. There is a Neshama of the world of Bria, there is a Neshama of the world of Yetzirah, and there is a Neshama of the world of Asiya. They're not random there. It's a plan. Execution plan of Malchus of Atzilus, how she creates. Okay? And she wants to make sure that she's part of every creation. That's her plan. Ani hu. I am in all of the creation. There's no one detail that doesn't have a lakus. That's exactly how she does it. Wow. She's literally the inner of every single world. The inner dimension of every single world. Isn't that like impressive? That's how she does it. So keilim pnimim, right here, the yellow, right? So we try to, to state the color code. So you get it, right? So the keilim pnimim that are marked as yellow, it could be any other color. We envision them, whatever it is. It could be literally random color. She becomes a keilim pnimim of the Bria. The pink one right here, okay, are going to become the keilim pnimim, again, the word. The emtsai of Atzilus becomes keilim pnimi of Yetzirah. And chitzayni of Atzilus becomes keilim pnimi of Asiya. Okay, that's it. This is the concept. Now, this is the thesis of what we discussed. He throws it at us at the beginning of the paragraph. And we're like, okay, whew, deep breath. This is the concept. This is what we're working with, right? So what are we going to do with that? We'll see soon, okay? Now, Sarah, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just curious if the Malchus of Atzilus, is it made up of those three things, or those three things come out from it?
No, she's not made up. No. That's her strategy. She's above it. Remember, she's in Atzilus. She's not caught up. She's not caught up by the system. Okay. She is, remember the paragraph 12 was talking about that in Malchus of Atzilus, there's two aspects. One is Malchus Malchus Kol Olamim, that she's really out there. She's doing her slichus. She's out of Atzilus. Okay. And the other one, Nizga Geshmo Levadei. She's within the Atzilus. She couldn't care less about the Bria. She's above. She's in the spot. Yeah, she's like, I don't have a family. I don't care about it. Okay. I'm chilling. Okay, that's it. So that's her, this dimension. And interestingly, it's only Malchus of Atzilus has this capacity to do it to such an extent where she is every single part of this world, and yet she's completely withdrawn. So now you could say like, oh, Mila, that sounds like questions of the philosophers. Exactly. We're still keeping those questions. Although we partially answered them, but in the beginning of the chapter, he introduced us to this, like, how could it be Hashem is so involved in all the creation and yet not being caught up by it? And that's why we have to bring the mashal of the sun, because in the sun ray, sun is shining everywhere. It's not caught up. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm shining in America right now. I cannot shine in Europe. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm busy. It doesn't work like that. Sun is shining. Whoever is capable of receiving the light of the sun, receiving the light of the sun.
So are these like rays of Malchus of Atzilus? Then Bria Tzilus?
Yeah, that's why we need for mashalim to understand how in the world she does it. That's how she does it. She's all four. She's like the sun. She's like the candle. She's like Neshama enlivens the body, and she's like Koach HaPoel Benifal, right? Specifically, not only just generally enlivens the body, but she's specifically, like right now, as I'm talking to you, Malchus of Atzilus gives me life. Every split second, she just says, Mila, 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 Mila. She speaks those words, right? That's how I'm here. And that's how every single one, and then the cup and the spoon and everything. And all my mess on my desk, okay? She's responsible. And yet, she's chilling up there in a sauna. You're like, hey, how do you do that? I want to learn that too, right? As a parent, as a wife, and as everything else, all the hats that we wear, we want to find out how she does it. And she's completely rested. And she's a queen. Wow. Okay, she's a queen, she's the servant, she's everything. Okay. And that's the reality. Okay, so now let's go back to text. ובגלל גם כלים החיצוניים דמלכוס נעשים כלים פנימיים דיוד ספירס דעולם העשייה, נקרא נשמה, right? And in general sense, right, even the outer vessels of Malchus, that's what we just said, right? The outer vessels, the 10 vessels that stayed in chitzonius of the Malchus, become the inner vessels of 10 spheres of Asiya, and they're also called Neshama. So if anybody has a question, wait a second, and that's what we call a shattering of keilim. Okay, because Moach Even, okay, our brain of stone likes to think in a very concrete way, in a very linear way, and lacks flexibility. Okay. Now, one second. No, Neshama, it only belongs to the world of Bria. Wrong. When we were describing that aspect for the world of Bria, we mentioned B'derech Klal that shayach to that world. That doesn't mean that Yetzirah has no shaychus to Neshama, to the term Neshama, you know. And Asir doesn't have a shaychus to Neshama. Yeah, it could be. But what does this mean? Like, why is it? Just because he wants to break a keilim? No. Because we need to understand what Neshama stands for. Neshama is the inner dimension, is the very life force. It's like breath, right? Person cannot live without a breath. It's impossible. So the same thing is for the world. The inner dimension, the inner energy is called Neshama. That's it. That's why when we refer how Malchus of Atzilus breaks into 30 keilim, and each of the keilim aligned, okay, going to become the inner keilim of every single world, that's why we use the term Neshama. Because it's like the very life force. Without that, there's no world. It's like the inner core of the world. Okay, so without that, she can't do it. That's the system she chose. Well, that's what the system that Hashem chose before the Tzimtzum. Okay, she's carrying it out that way. Okay, Vayadua, the pnimis hakelim de yitzvirus de bia, right? And it is known that the inner vessels of the 10 spheres of bia. Let me ask you, what are we referring to? We just said, what are the 10? The pnimis of the keilim of yud spheres de bia. What are they? Come on. So we just understand whether we're on the same page. What is it? No. We just said, what are they? The inner keilim of the Yud spheres Abiyah. They are the keilim of Malchus of Atzilus. That's it. Okay. Ham bechinas elokus. That's the level of elokus, the godliness. Ham halamet keilim, the Malchus of Atzilus atzma, because they are the 30 keilim of the Malchus of Atzilus itself. Aval keilim emtsoyim bechitzoniyim ham bechinas nivraim. But now, each world is like an onion. Okay? So now, the world doesn't exist only with pneumias. Right? Like, we wouldn't be here if we would be just neshama. We need to have ruach and nefesh, right? We need to have a life force and the body. to do anything. Okay.
It's amazing to think that the world of Asiya, the pnimiut of the world of Asiya, is Elokus.
Yeah. So now the keilim emtsayim and the chitzonim, that's already creation. So now let's go back to our diagram. Okay. So you see those little spheres around each world? So this is keilim pnimim. Now this one is keilim emtsayim, and this one is keilim chitzonim of Bria. This is keilim pnimim of Yetzira. This is keilim emtsayim, and this is keilim chitzonim. This is keilim pnimim of Asiya. This one is keilim emtsayim of the Asiya, and this is the keilim chitzonim. So we're really working with onions here. Many, many layers of onions, one on top of each other. You could technically just take an onion, you know, just with 3, and create, I don't know, a snowman. You know, it's like the inner one is the inner one of this world. The inner one is the inner one of this world. And then they also have the external one and the intermediary in between. And like, wait a second. So these are the parts. That's why it's called Elokim. There are many moving parts here. Okay, it's not just a general energy. It's each one of these components has a different set of rules. Okay. But the phenomenal thing, as Nuria pointed out, is that the keilim pnimim of Asiya are Elokus. It's like, wow, really? Yeah. Although they are Nivrayim on the external levels, but B'pnimis is Elokus. That's what makes it alive. That's what makes it not only alive, exist, a stone.
So,
okay, so no longer thinking duality. There's no duality. It's a Christian belief that there's good and evil. It's all God. Like, excuse me, you know, next time you see this Hamas, you're like, Hashem in excuse. Why are you doing this to me? But that's, I know, but that's like a hard truth, because it's easier for us to believe that we are victims. After this, nobody's a victim. It's like, hello, Hashem, why are you doing this to me? We're bringing everything back to Hashem. And interestingly, those hostages that made that link were the first one to be released. It's funny. You know, or, you know, they made that link is like, you know what? You have no power over me because there's no evil. It's a phenomenal realization that this whole event, very unpleasant event, very traumatic event, I think, for anybody, you know, on the Jewish, and how much more so traumatic for Israelis and for the families who were involved in this horror. But at the same time, each one of them came out that, no, in this midst of the darkness, this is Elokus. That's it. And it's a crazy idea, 100%. It's not like, you know, you could call it whatever you want, but that's the conclusion was. And it's like, wow. And each one of them are presenting, you hear all these hostages. They speak. And each one of them are presenting this idea wrapped with their own words. But the bottom line, the essence of what they're saying is that they recognize that it's all Elokus. It's like, how can you recognize this in the midst of your situation? Like, you know, and that's the brilliance, you know, that they were able to recognize this despite all the chaos and, you know, the things that were happening with them. So now good news is we don't need to go down there. We could recognize it here through the work that we do. We don't need to have these type of experiences to come to these type of conclusions. And I think this is the beauty of it. Okay, so this is what we're trying to do and accomplish, that we, you know, a Jew doesn't have to travel to who knows where to recognize Hashem. We could do it right here in front of our computers, in front of our books, and do that. So
Mina?
that's, yes.
So I want to make one comment. For me, this clarifies it, but I hope it would be clarifying for other people that, if the pneumium is neshama, so the enzyme is ruach, and the chitzonim is nefesh, that it corresponds to nefesh, ruach,
Exactly, because later on he's going to say the kli hachitzon is koach, right? So we could go into even more at depth because, okay, like we're going to do that. Remember this table that we did? Right? That was not in vain. So now let me ask you, by looking at this table and the other table, can I do that? I could do that for you. Okay. Am I complicating it? Possible.
Well, what's class I am in from you, Justice?
You see all my canvas, right? Okay. So what we're gonna do, I'm sorry. What we're gonna do is we're gonna compare these two diagrams. Okay, here we go. Okay, like look at these two things here. Okay, yeah. Okay, now let me ask you, which one, what's kli pnimi? Is it or? Is it chayus or this is koach?
Okay, so Sarah is saying or.
Yeah, it is or. So now the chitzon becomes what? Koach, right? Emtsai will be chayus. So we understand that now within the world, the function is the inner keilim is the light. Okay. The intermediary is chayus. And the chitzon is koach. And it goes like that for every world. So the light of Atzilus, remember, he'ara, this illumination, penetrates, okay, and works as light. At the same time, on the imtsoi level, it works as chayus. And then on the external one, it works like koach. Okay? Now, where do we feel our individuality? That I'm somebody. Okay? On the level of koach, for sure. That's where my ego rests. I am somebody. I am a creation. I have my own opinion. I have a freedom of choice. Okay? But then I recognize that my vitality, my chayus, doesn't come from my ego. Okay? Doesn't come from me feeling my separateness. So there is more bittul, more submission, right? Recognition. And then on a pneumius level, I recognize, oh, it's all what? It's all elokus. And then you're going to say, yes, Milechka, that's exactly what this chapter is about, is to recognize how memale kol almin, malchuscha, malchus kol almin. Okay, that the malchus of every single world is who? Malchuscha, your malchus. So the submission of us is to recognize that although we have all the ego, all our problems, whatever else we carry within ourselves, on the keilim chitzonim, the submission process is to go inward, where the elokus rests. Okay. But that we're really speaking in a lot of general terms, but that's where the hisbonenus is, right? So now when we do hisbonenus, what do we do? Where we go? We speak more or we start thinking? thinking, right? That's a pneumius, that's the pneumius levush that we have. Okay, and that's represented in the world of Bria, right? The Bria is it's the world of thought. Now, Yetzira is the world of Mides, heart, right? Now, where are we going? You know, the Bria is the nervous system, right? Look at this, right? Now, the external ones is the liver system, the heart system, the brain system. Okay, look at the other ones. These are the capillaries, the arteries, the nerves. Okay, so now we're going to go even deeper. Chabad is nerves. Okay, Chagas is the heart, right? Nehi is the capillaries. Does that remind you anything? Well, Chabad as a movement. Okay, what are we busy doing? Getting on the nerves of everybody. Are you Jewish? It's like your business. Who am I? But that's what we do, because this is how the world operates. That's according to Seder Shtalshalos. And then you go to Bikur Keilim and you see all Satmar, give food for everybody. That's what blood does. Blood nourishes. Okay? I don't know who's Chitzanim. I didn't figure out. It just came to me as part of my contemplation. Isn't it? No, every single hospital has Chagas. And they don't care. Like you're Jewish, they have this like Bikur Cholim rooms. You know what I'm talking about? I guess whoever went to the hospital, they see Vishnit, it's all into food production in Eretz Yisrael. They cook and they bake and they distribute food for needy families. And Chabad doesn't do it. I mean, Chabad has very small operation. Chabad has a different thing, like they're just getting into your nerve. What's nerves? Not only to get you, upset. This was just a joke, but it's, has some truth to it. Is bringing people into awareness, right? Chabad is into awareness that they are Jewish. Whether they have what to eat or not, that already comes as a secondary. That we also obviously, give food for Chabad, but that's not an ikar. What you see with Vishnit, with Satmar, they mamish into food. Like, it's unbelievable. The food productions is like, I was watching this, I have few, Chagas friends from Williamsburg, from Kiryat Yoel, and you don't understand, they are being raised, mechanech, as girls, like we mechanech our girls to go on shlichus, they mechanech the girls to do chesed organizations. Like who doesn't have shoes, who doesn't have this, who doesn't have that, and each one has like it's unbelievable what the systems are, and I was like so impressed, and I'm like, wow, this is beautiful, because that's exactly what the heart does. Heart nourishes. There is no part of the body that's not going to get the vitamins, and each one what they need, and it's beautiful how it lays out like that. But Chabad is different, right? Chabad is a pneumius of the keilim, and they, the job is, are you Jewish? Where's your Jewish identity? And all that stuff. That's an awareness, understanding that we are an extension of godliness. And that's the job of pneumius keilim. And that's what Malchus of Atzilus does. Malchus of Atzilus divides into 30 keilim, okay? And she makes sure that every single world, the nervous system of the world is going to be a lukus. It's going to be that message that his brain exists, okay? And an extension is like literally inside. So imagine it's like, my hand, my nails, my nail bed, right? They all have nerves. And this is the pneumius keilim. Because if chas v'shalom, it detaches itself, what happens? The nourishment is not going to go there, because the keilim emtsayim, the arteries, okay, and the keilim chitzayim, the capillaries, could reach only to where the sensation goes. to where the nerve goes. And that's why it's very, very dangerous to have a nerve damage in a particular tissue. Why? Because then that's why they cut off limbs. I mean, I don't want to get graphic, but because there was a nerve damage, and therefore that limb, the blood flow to that limb could go only where the nerve ends. Okay, that's why they go through this whole therapy, you know, whatever. So that's very, very essential. So, you know, it's you know, anyway. Okay, we're getting a little bit too far from the text and, you know, our application. We're going to go back to the text. Any questions up until now? Quiet.
So I want to ask Saratova, do you see that do you understand something that you didn't when you reviewed it on your own before the class?
I hope so.
Oh, can you not see images?
No, she's on the phone.
No, the images won't help me.
All right. Okay.
It's quite overload for me.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I didn't realize. Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm like thinking that maybe we should end here. Because next because we really need to absorb and kind of make sense of what we are discussing here. Because later on, what is he going to do is he's going to give us examples. He gave us like a concept of this lamed keilim of Atzilus. And now he's going to give examples of how that works in the world of Bria, like Malach Michael and Malach Gabriel. You know, they are, you know, the Kli Achitzon of the world of, you know, Bria, and what really happens to them and how they distribute and blah, 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 and how they're on the level of Koach, and they're just like a lot of other details. But I think before that, the first idea has to settle in our brain, how that works. So I would suggest we end here, take questions, because it is already 11:35 by us, 36. And kind of, you know, take a week to take it in. Make as many diagrams you want in order to understand this from a very practical way. Like it's quite technical. And then we will, you know, slowly, like it will help us to unpack. And then Bezrat Hashem next week, we could already see, you know, and add more details as far as, you know, Malach Michael, Malach Gabriel, and all that stuff.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. So I might need help with the question. The different manifestations of Malchus Atzilus as it goes down into Bria, Tzir, and Asiya, does it contain the whole of Atzilus, of Malchus Atzilus within it?
Sure. Yeah.
So
That's
then what's
why
the difference?
it's how it's being expressed. Right? What the observer sees, what the observer feels. So technically speaking, if you are on a quest, you know what, I'll discover you, Hashem. Okay? And you're like, you start unwrapping, as Alter Rebbe says, you'll find God. What do you think you're going to find then? But just the recognition that it's the outer layer, the Pnimis as Elokus, is a big step into this unwrapping process. That's where the whole Hashgacha Pratis comes in. That's where the whole Bitachon comes in. What do you think? These are not just like interesting beliefs. Everything is from Hashem, right? It's like sounds like a very novel, you know, thing. And then things happen to us, you know, and you're like, wait a second, where's Hashem in here? Like, what's going on here? You know, that how can you have bitachon? Like, anybody just like figured it out? Now, the Shara Yechud adds a layer of actually not just believing, but knowing. And I think that's difference between how Chagat relates to Baal Shem Tov's Chassidus and how Chabad relates to it. You know, what was the kavana of the Alter Rebbe introducing all this to us? By the way, where do you think Shar Yichud takes this? Where do you think Mittel Rebbe takes this from? Why Rebbe Hillel is explaining all these things to us? It's because it's written in Tanya. So it's not, they didn't just make it up. They didn't just like envision it like, I don't know, in their dreams. They are analyzing things that Alter Rebbe brought in Tanya, and you know, they just explaining it further, clarifying it for us. But why did Alter Rebbe choose this? Like, what was his thing? Because he felt that it's not fair that only Yechidei Zgula are going to be, aware of this knowledge, or do something with it. He said, no, that's really. He took Arizal saying that there's a mitzvah legalis chachma zeis, right? That there's a mitzvah to reveal this chachma. And that's what he was doing. It's not enough to be a Baal Shem Tov Chassid who is on emunah. No, that emunah has to be internalized. So what does this mean to be internalized? It's not just like, that now you understand how the structure works. You understand how, give me a minute, please. You understand how this actually happens. It's like Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. He went to he became a chassid of the Mezer Shemagit, and he wasn't sure, like whatever, like he wanted to go to Mezrich, and he basically his father-in-law wasn't happy about this idea, but he gave permission from his wife. She was supporting him, and they went. And he went. So after a while, he comes back, and his father-in-law starts mocking him. He's like, no, what did you learn in Mezrich? Like, he was a big Talmid Chacham. He was a big Talmid Chacham anyway. So what did you learn? So he said that, oh, now I know that there's a Hashem in the world. And his father-in-law started laughing. And give me a minute, please. A few minutes. And he's like, and he said, like, what, there's a God in the world? Well, I know that too. I mean, there's my shikta knows about it. So he calls his maid, whatever she was, Marusia, Tanya, whatever there was, and he asked her, like, oh, do you believe that there's a God in the world? And she said, yeah, for sure. It was very obvious for her. And then he looks at his son-in-law. He's like, no, like, what's so novel? You went to Mezrich to learn such a simple concept. And he said to her a famous saying, like, she says there's a God in the world. I know there's a God in the world. So there are different levels of knowing, right? Obviously, we could say whatever, everything is coming from Hashem. Hashem is in every detail of the world. All these klalistic ideas, which are great. We should know klalim. But if we don't connect pratim, that this knowledge just surrounds our brain, it's not internalized, it's not broken down, it doesn't become part of us to such an extent that we are on the level of actually experiencing God versus just talking about Him.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I want to ask, because you've been studying this for decades. Can I have a little peek into what it's like for you to look at the world through this?
We're all working at it. I didn't become a tzaddik yet, that I could tell you. Yeah, it's it's a lot of work. It's not at least that's how it feels to me. But yeah, definitely a lot of good things happen to me because of this. It's definitely, you have like a calm stability, I guess that's what you could call. Things could happen on the outside, but it doesn't shake me so much internally.
Mm.
It still does, but then you have a system how to bring yourself to right here, right now. You know, I guess that's the benefit. It's like when you open Shara Yichud, it's a different world opens up in front of you. Do you know what I mean? Like you could center yourself back. It's not like, you know, things are happening to me. Oh my gosh, I don't know what's flying, blah blah blah. Like, so do you go in your study and you revive that light again, because it's not for no reason it's called Divrei Elokim Chaim. Because what it really reveals into you that the God is alive. It's not, you know, something written in a book and, you know, created the world, you know, 5,000 years ago and, you know, just went to sleep. And also, like, you know, quite amazing miracles happen to me. You know, it's yeah, but that's you know, for bringing Sarah.
Okay, looking forward.
It's also very personalized. You know, there's no one way that it manifests. It'll manifest differently for each person. And also it'll manifest differently depending on the Yegia and depending on the work that you put in. That's what, you know, we studied a lot in chapter 1, that it all depends on the process, the processing. It's not like something that just falls from the sky. We learned in chapter 1 and 2 how it becomes part of you and how it becomes ingrained in you, and then the change takes place. But without that process, then we're learning b'derech prat, but in a way of derech klal. So it really just depends on each person, how they engage with the text and how they engage with themselves in relation to that.
Mila, can I ask a question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you were saying that having studied Hispanos, having done Hispanos for a long period of time, it gets you to a place where things happen in the world, that things, I imagine, things that are difficult or challenging, or things that we would react to, things that would get us into our amygdala, and it doesn't affect you as much. Do you mind sharing shortly what that looks like? And I understand it might be different for everyone, because there's a similar thing that one does through mindful meditation. You just come back to the present, and you get you train your brain to you get in a non-reactive space. So what does that look like in the context of Hisbonenus?
So you see, you get to a non-reactive space. That's good from being a functional person in the world, right? A healthy, right? We can call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very different. It's not to see the world as a healthy world or as a healthy self, but more towards where's Hashem in there? You see, it's like, and that's my big criticism on all the modalities out there for, you know, manifestation and all that stuff. There is so much focus on self that ways Hashem there becomes very, very blurry. I don't think that's even the, you know, the.
So are you talking about just
yeah, mindfulness.
maintaining
I mean,
that
like, it
awareness
brings
of
me to
Hashem
right
all
here,
the
right
time?
now, but what am I doing with it? Okay, I'm right here, right now. What's next?
Uh-huh.
You understand? It's like it's like a part of an answer. It's missing a big chunk of a creator in it.
So it's more
Do you know what I
like,
mean? Like,
what do I do, rather than why is this happening to me?
not necessarily, no. Like, I mean, it definitely calms your nervous system, but it's not enough for me. I don't know for you, but it's not enough for me. I want to see Hashem in this. Do you know what I mean? So what will happen to me, for example, I told that story with the building.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so That's why I felt I really need to change my like I had to be accountable for every single thought. Not just, for me to stay calm, but for me to actually get the results.
Mommy, a few minutes past.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's not about, being present. And so what do you do after you reach that? What's next?
It's like, what
You
is
know,
expected of
The
what is
next for
expected
me
of me?
was to manifest a building that I received so many letters from the Rebbe. You understand that yeah, like a success, you're gonna get it. Then I wasn't getting it. And you reach that point of frustration where you're like, okay, what's going on? And then you realize that, yeah, you need to align yourself. So it's no longer a manifestation, it becomes an alignment.
Mommy,
So I don't think, there is a program out there, in mindfulness that really helps you to align because it misses the context. The context
Well,
is
it helps you.
God.
It helps you calm your brain. That's what it
Okay,
does.
fine. That's amazing. Exactly.
Right.
That's why it's like, so you come to, okay, so you calm down. Okay, amazing.
Right.
Like
Okay,
I
get
felt that with the tools with Shari Yichud is like, okay, where is Elokus in this?
I'm just asking what that looks like. Is it in thought?
What that looks like to me is that I really want to get results.
Presenting me with this challenge right now. Thank you, Hashem. What do I do next? I mean,
no, but that's what I'm trying to say, Nechama. When you really do the work of this, your brain becomes very different. Do you understand? And again, let's me make it clear, is that I see it as layers of reality. Okay. So, and I have a choice to remain outsider, okay, and interact with the world, yesh to yesh, which is fine. That's my choice. Okay.
Which is most of our default settings.
Exactly. And that's okay. And I could be calm there. I could do my meditations and my mindfulness, and I still will interact with the world yesh to yesh. Okay. Or I could really be desperate enough to let go of my perceptions of whatever else I know about this, Kitzonius, and go a little bit deeper, and maybe go even a little bit deeper. Okay. If you remember, I introduced to the class a Hayom Yom that talks about the 3 levels of Isbonenus. Who remembers that? Okay, that talks about one is, the Iyun, Sichlis. Yeah, just 1 second. Okay. The funny part here is that my kids are attracted to this light. They'll literally sit right next to my chair. You don't see them. But at the same time, they want to do their own thing. I'm like, guys, you have a whole project. You could go and do whatever you want to do a little bit. But they know they insist.
Just charger and phone over there.
You could? Okay. I think there's a charger in the kitchen. Okay.
I'm looking for fields. There's no normal.
Okay, so I guess we're really touching a very interesting discussion here. That give me a few more minutes, 5 more minutes, and then I'll be with you. Okay.
Mila, I really admire how you managed to do this and not shut them out. It's very. It's
I
beautiful
have
to watch.
to tell you, I learned it from the Alter Rebbe. Seriously, when he was asked how in the world, how did he know that he needs to reveal Tanya? Here we go, Marshall, you're on record. Okay, how did he know that that's exactly what he needed to do? So he said, when he had this idea to write Tanya, okay, so I mean, which of the Gadol B'Israel doesn't want to write his work? What's the big deal about it? Why the world went on uproar? Even his own colleagues. I mean, come on, do yourself a favor. There's a pamphlet about how the Tanya was written, and all this craziness that Alter Rebbe had to go through with his own colleagues. Okay, and he did it anyway. He said that when I saw how much it was stirring people, and opposition was rising even from his colleagues, which were the Talmidim of the Mezritch Magid. He said, I knew exactly that that's what I need to do. And that's what like revealed in him the Mesiras Nefesh. For him, it was just his life work. But then when he saw the opposition, he's like, no, there is something in it which is so grandiose and so special.
Mommy, I want to tell you
Yeah.
something.
So that's, when you see all this happening, it's definitely a beautiful discussion. But I think the time is up, and it's really 11:54.
Yeah.
And I feel very, very bad of all the people who are actually, I was told they don't want to log off because of fear of missing out. And I wouldn't.
Okay, so we'll post those two pictures, the two diagrams, so that people can really do review, so that you can go forward into the rest of the paragraph with clarity. So until next week, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.